I think we're online. I'm not sure. Man, I'm never very good at this. We're online here. Where are we? Here we go. Turn this around. And I believe we're online. I can't even tell. But welcome to Change Wednesday. Today is the day we do three things: smile, change, and unplug. Right. So there's the three things that we do every Change Wednesday, and it's very important this Change Wednesday because it's also Women's Day. Right. It's they call it International Women's Day, but I prefer not to talk about International Women's Day because all women are important, regardless of the nation that they're in, and it shouldn't be a day. It should be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where women held up half the sky. I mean, the fact of the matter is, especially in these times, women are doing more work in overall than many men are. At the home, at the work, if they have work, if their parent has, it's a mess. The world is a real mess with regard to relations between men and women, and also just the systems and the patriarchal systems that essentially we have set up. I'm not saying patriarchy is all bad. Certainly, most of our civilization has been based upon it, but you've got to understand that matriarchies also exist, and that may likely have been our original structure, our original belief systems. Why? Because women produce more humans. Men don't produce them. They contribute to the production of them, but they don't produce more humans. Women do. So that's the miracle, and that's what we've known as human beings, as animal human beings. We've known this from the very earliest, cognizance of ourselves as individuals. We know where babies come from. They come from women, and so all of what we're experiencing in these times, I'm of the opinion, could be wrong, but I'm of the opinion that we're going to shift back. We're going to shift back to a much more kind of a female perspective, women perspective. And as I say these words, geez, I'm reminded because I'm thinking woman, men is in there, right? Woman and female, female, male. Like, what is it with our language and our men that we just have to be? Everything's referential to men, female, and anyway, it's just some thought that just occurred to me right now, that it must be, as a person of maleness, I have I have a very limited view of the world. I only see it from a male perspective, and I never thought about the words female. I didn't think of the word male being, sort of the root of all of these other, of these other words. But then, of course, you look at the Christian Bible, or maybe it's the Judeo-Christian tradition, Bible, and so on, and you see that. Hold on, I've got to plug in here. You see that this Adam's rib stuff. That the female came from the male. Wow, that doesn't even make sense. Right? Doesn't even make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. It's like a big excuse for saying, for male dominance. It's like, well, women came from the rib of Adam. Well, just as a monkey sitting around, you're going to go, oh, look, little monkeys come out of that female monkey. That female monkey is the monkey that I just had a roll in the hay with. Okay. I maybe initiate a process, but the process is done by that female monkey. Oh man, how we've distorted our perceptions, right? And we've played it into the male insecurity. Male insecurity has created an entire civilization. Not all civilization operates this way, but certainly a large part of the West operates on this principle of male dominance. So I can't apologize for anybody else. I apologize for myself, and I think there are many men like myself who agree, who don't like this idea that women are second class, treated like second class. They aren't second class citizens, but they are treated as such, and they are treated like as chattel, as ownership. I mean, we're making some progress. Humanity is making some progress over the last, I don't know how many years, maybe last 100 years, I suppose, since the suffragettes. But yeah, certainly better, but not where we need to be. Not where we need to be, folks. But let's keep a positive spirit toward it, because we are working toward the same situation, and we do see that more. You just have to look in the environmental area, in the climate change area. You just have to look at this, and you have to you see that who are the young people, particularly, who are the young people who are standing up to the corporations and the governments and these absolute liars. Who's standing up to them? Who's calling them out on their lies? Young men, some, but really no, hardly any. And those young men are truly brave because they are breaking ranks with other men who want to maintain a dominant narrative, and who just don't like the idea that fast cars and motor oil is what life's about. Fracking, that they like the idea of blowing up shale rock. like a lot of males do, we like the idea of blowing things up. So there you go. It's a very, very bizarre world we're living in, but there you go. Now I see my Zoom call, not even one person on it. Maybe I've not done this correctly. Okay, I'll give it another 5 minutes, because I'm not even sure that this thing is live streaming. It's possible that it's not. Let's maybe just check for a moment. Oh yeah, it should be. Okay, let's hope so. So welcome to Change Wednesday. Change Wednesday is every Wednesday, right? And so, as I've mentioned, today is also Women's Day, but let's call it Women's, what do we call it? It's not women's, it's like every day, but maybe not the whole day, maybe half the day or 51% of the day is Women's Day. The other 51% every day is Men's Day, or maybe it's not 51, maybe it's just on a spectrum, right? So it's a spectrum, like from hyper masculinity to hyper femininity and everything in between. All right, so it includes everybody. And we just have the day is there's time and space for everyone in the day. Okay, it doesn't matter what your gender is, doesn't matter what your pronoun is, doesn't matter whatever. It just matters that you are contributing, that you're a citizen of conscience land, number one. So what is it, a citizen of conscience land? What are our principles? Well, the principles are do no harm, right? Have no fear, or do not fear. And the third one is, anybody remember? Hello? Leave it better than you found it. Okay, leave it better than you found it. That's the third option, is leave it better than you found it. So yes, I was just bringing out Roger the Reality Rooster. You know, buck, 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 wake up. That's Roger the Reality Rooster and LCP. Wednesday. Her name is Wednesday. Why? Because she's Wednesday's child, and she's Wednesday is lifestyle, right? This is wake up. Roger the Reality Rooster is waking us up to reality, and this character is lifestyle, living a lifestyle of health, happiness, and sustainability. You know, which again is a very, very stereotypical female role is nurturing, caring for. That's that's LCP, and this one is kind of the semi-aggressive, wake up, like the loud, brash male. And he's a rooster, so he is male. Roger the Reality Rooster, waking us up to reality. Right? Wake up, really, look up, stand up, like get up off your butt. It's not that someone's going to ride in, whether you're male or female or any of us. It's not someone that's going to ride in and save us in this situation. No, we are on our own, absolutely on our own. Right? Humanity is on its own. I mean, maybe there's going to be some aliens come down. I don't know, or some religious people think Messiah is going to come. So the Messiah comes. So what? Then everybody else dies and they get sucked up to heaven. That's not solving the problem, right? That what we need is not messiahs, and it'd be nice, but what we need is, and we don't really want the aliens too much. Although, I mean, I can't see any alien influence being. I mean, you're going to be a slave either way, right? Because if you think that the aliens are going to come and save us, well, how are the aliens going to save us? Well, they're going to save us by enslaving us, so that we don't act out our worst habits. They're going to stop us from consuming chocolate bars and chips. They're going to stop us from eating meat. They're going to stop us from. I'm talking about the aliens now. They're going to stop us from polluting and dumping chemicals in the rivers and dumping garbage in the air. They're going to stop us from doing that. So we're going to be like the World Economic Forum Davos boys. We're going to be maybe happy, but probably not, and have nothing. Right? We're not going to own anything. We're going to be, totally under the dictatorship of some artificial intelligence or superior intelligence to ours. Now that superior intelligence is clearly not here on Earth yet, right? There's no, as far as I'm aware, there's no aliens. Well, they may be among us, but they're not. Well, they may be leading us in some instances as well, but I suspect that they're mostly just watching us screw up, and they're maybe have some pact or something with the universalists to not interfere. I don't know. It might be possible, but certainly not the leaders that we have now. They're not all that smart. I mean, smarter than the average person, yes, or more. I would say it's not smarter. I'd say more conniving, more manipulative than the average person. And certainly the psychopaths and the sociopaths, they are more conniving. They're more manipulative. They deceive us to the point where we believe what they say, because they say what we want to hear, and then we follow them to our deaths. And we see this right now. We see this in the Western countries anyway, in Canada and in Australia, in New Zealand, in the UK. We see the governments taking away our freedoms. We see the governments, infringing on our self-sovereignty, on our body sovereignty. We see this. It's not hidden. It's seen, and they're even making proclamations, and they're enacting emergency actions and so on. So we're in a very, very serious situation. But this is why on Wednesday is the day that we ask people to I think, I'm going to go back on on Facebook because I don't see anybody joining on Zoom. So let me close Zoom. Just bear with me for a moment. I'm going to end it. End Zoom. End meeting for all. Okay. And I'm going to go back on the Facebook. Okay. So if this is still running on, oh, hi everybody, yes. Okay, we're back. We're back from only broadcasting live to Facebook um, and YouTube to broadcasting live through this Facebook account right here, and we shut down the Zoom because in the 5 or 10 minutes that I had it open, nobody joined. So either they didn't get the message, they didn't want to, or whatever it is. But maybe there will be some people watching here live, and at least with the Facebook, there's an opportunity to feedback. Actually, I think there is on the let's see, on the YouTube as well. But I haven't used this feature yet. Let me see if I can see a Facebook, a YouTube. Sorry, folks. It's just craziness, isn't it? That after all this time, I still haven't got I still haven't got a handle on how to use all of these. But in my own defense, okay, a little bit of an excuse. In my own defense, I also, okay, that's not good. I also, okay, that's. Oh, I watched Lex Friedman. I don't know if you've ever watched Lex Friedman. He is really smart guy and very, very good interviewer. Of course, he just asks good questions, and he's a very smart guy. I think trained at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, in AI. So pretty smart guy. Let me search here on YouTube and see if I can find live. What would I find it under? I think it's under Conscience Land live stream. Conscience Land. Okay, let me just go to Conscience Land. And let's see if this can work. So I'm back on Facebook Live. And, oh, I think maybe, yeah, live now. Okay, good. Okay, so I can take a look at this. I'll keep the sound down because, there's always this feedback problem, right? One watching now, I guess that's me. All right. It may take a long time for that to happen. So I'll pay attention over here. This is Change Wednesday, Smile, Change, Unplug. Those are the 3 things that we do every Wednesday. It is Women's Day, okay? And I've mentioned in previously that Women's Day is about, it's called the International Women's Day, but in Conscience Land, we don't talk about nations. So, at least we don't discuss nations as dividing people up. There are women in the world. I think there's 51%, or maybe. Please put the comment if you know the answer to that. What is the percentage of women to men in the world? I don't know what the answer is, but my proposal is that we sort of change this thinking of, oh, okay, we celebrate one gender like one time a year, or we celebrate Earth Day one time a year. They celebrate the entire planet that we live on and depend on for everything. We celebrate it one day a year. Oh, how insignificant, how stupid, how unhelpful, right? So Earth Day should be every day, right? Or in the case of Conscience Land, maybe it's not every day, it's every week, which is the purpose of Change change Wednesday. You know what? I probably can't view it myself because I'm broadcasting it. That's probably the reason why. It says an error occurred, so I understand that. Makes sense. I'll just close that up. So I'll just make this clear that this stay live on Facebook, whether it's getting to YouTube or not, I'm not sure. But what we need to do in Conscience Land is build our lists, right? We need to build our mailing list, basically. Why? Well, if anyone hasn't noticed, we're in a war situation right now. Hopefully, it doesn't expand, but it could very, very easily. You know, a few stupid remarks, a few stupid actions on both sides, on any side, and we're going to be in a very, very this can escalate. This can escalate very, very easily. So, you know, all we can do is say, wow, we have to be careful. All right, that's the first thing. And we have to look after the people who are affected by it, primarily Ukrainians. But I think also, as I've mentioned in an earlier broadcast, I think this is also the opportunity to realize how racist we are as humans. How, and especially the Western media. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. You know, we are so selfish in the Western media. We are so self-referential. We are so navel-gazing, and we're so discriminatory toward people who are not buying iPhones from us, right? We're so discriminating. It's just revolting. And watching this, how this plays out, because you know the thing about war, and you know I'm just writing you know proposals on how we're gonna start a whole maybe even I hesitate to call it a political party. It's more like a movement, a peace movement. Oops, something's ringing. Sorry, folks. I've got to fix this. Stop. So, oops. Oh, resume. Okay, sorry. I kind of. I hope it's resuming. Yeah. So you know, I'm working on. It's actually existed almost all the time. Conscience Land has existed, but I haven't put it in a kind of a formal way. But if you're interested in helping me or being part of or starting it yourself, a new, I hesitate to call it, excuse me, a political party, because it's designed, the idea of it, it's more like a movement or a representative. It's more like a movement to gain access to the levers of power, but not really, because we know it's like the Green Party or any of these things. They're never going to get actually into power. Why? Because the fossil fuel industry and the arms industry won't permit it, right? They control parliaments, or them and the WEF, and or maybe it's the same thing. They're never going to let any freedom-loving, planet-respecting organization get into power. So the best we can do at this time is to have a party. I don't know if I'll tell you the name right now. I would prefer you read our newsletters, for example. I prefer you link up and find out sort of the inside story on what we're doing in Conscience Land. Why? Because that's what we need to do, is we need to build up our membership. We need to build up who's interested in what we're doing and who wants to benefit from what we're doing and who wants to take a lead. You know, what we say is lead, follow, or get out of the way, right? So really, it's so critical right now. You know, with rainforests hitting the tipping points and drying out and becoming savanna, to the ices, the Toit Glacier, cracking off and raising sea levels. rapidly, right? These things are happening. I don't know the time scale. I'm not that kind of scientist. So, but it's happening. So we in this party that I'm talking about, um, it's basically a peace and freedom party. It's a peace or love and freedom party. And love, as you've heard me say before, love is not just lovey-lovey like. It's called agape. I think that's from the Greek. Um, it's what we love about life. It's not romantic love necessarily. Can include that, but it's it's that this is how the world works. They say the cliche is that love makes the world go around. Well, yeah, it does. I mean, it is consciousness. It is the dynamic, right, between what this living life is, this meat bag with a spirit in it. That's between that and the source of all existence, of all non-existence, of everything, the universal consciousness, the basis of all religious thought. Every religious thought is based on this concept. So this idea of a party or a group, all colors unified. That's like, it doesn't matter what your skin color is, doesn't matter what language you speak, doesn't matter what religion you are. We have to be unified. I don't mean unitary state. No, 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 no. Don't. You're getting off on a tangent if you get triggered by this idea of unity, unified. We're not saying that everybody's the same. We're not saying that everybody's together. We're saying we're unified in our objective. And hopefully it's a decentralized objective, right? The objective is to let the earth heal, and in fact proactively heal the earth, our only home. That's the objective. How you do that that's your own culture, it's your own religion, it's your own community. Everybody all communities have a different way of serving their populations. I mean, their basics are food and water, but otherwise there's different costume, different religious practice, different ethical uh, systems of ethical belief. There's different ways that people approach it. But ultimately, what is it for? Well, it's for peace and harmony. I mean, there's not too many. I mean, you might say the Spartans or something, but there are not too many historical examples of purely aggressive societies. I mean, sure, there might be a warrior society, but maybe that's just the sort of the warrior age men or boys and men. They're the ones that are full of testosterone, and they're full of confusion. Basically, their bodies are causing them to be needing to insert themselves in something. They need to make a difference somewhere. They got to push themselves into something, a war or something. So, okay, is that biology? Yeah, it's totally biology, completely. But then there's another part of the populations of any population who are, well, they're nurturing, they're looking after, they're healing, they're wisdom holders, they're all these other functions. So I don't think there's any real example of cultures that have been purely aggressive and warring. You got to have a balance in a community. Otherwise, you can never save enough food to look after children. You couldn't do it. You'd be always eating on the run to go and chop off the head of your neighbor. So that's the part of the idea behind this. And I hesitate again to say political, because I think our actions are non-political. Our actions are toward, it's not about one party winning over another party. We need to get the parties competing to do good, but there has to be some kind of like a referee, but it's more than a referee. It's like a wise person amongst these hyenas who has a voice, because they're the wiser, more sort of looking at the whole situation for the benefit of everyone. And so you don't have these zero-sum games. You don't have these situations where people are, I win, you lose. We got to get over that. And yeah, and also that some organization, some effort that I've drawn here a gun with a rose stuck in it, a flower, boom, stuck in it. Um, uh, and also, I speak here on this idea, and because you could be involved, right? You could be a candidate in your own municipality, in your own school. You're in your student council, or in your federal government. I mean, you could be a candidate for this party, or name it yourself. Do it, customize it to your own needs. But the concepts of it could be quite useful and well, not just useful. I mean, actually critical to humanity. And just so you know, the flag, and I think oh no, I mentioned this before. I've mentioned this in another thing, and I began to tell you what the flag of Conscience Land was, and then I said no, you have to join up. You have to find out by becoming a citizen of Conscience Land, or at least interested in what Conscience Land's doing, and put your email in the. Oh, I know. I didn't put. I'll put the comments here. Comment. Let's see. Here, comment. Hello. Here's something that I didn't do. Okay, and I see it. Whoop. All right, so I also here, I've put Happy Women's Day. Here's a comment. How many minutes in here? Anyway, Happy Women's Day, Freedom Wednesday, and Change Wednesday. And there's the link for the last week's newsletter. There is a link for even the Zoom call, which I may go back to. I don't think so, because I didn't get any calls in the first few minutes, and I can't manage these machines very well. So I'm still live streaming, I believe, to Yahoo, not Yahoo, to YouTube. All right, but so we have a flag, okay? But remember, I won't describe what the flag is, but let me put some things about flags. This flags are basically battle standards, right? We've used flags for I think thousands of years. Certainly, I mean, the Romans had flags, and the banners and the standards, the holding up the thing. They represent violence, basically. They represent power. Right here, I am with this group, and this group has this symbolism. It's tigers or lions or something, powerful and aggressive. So that's my identity on the battlefield when you can't see me face to face, eye to eye. You can't see people at a distance, but you can see the flag. And so that flag becomes them. And there's even rules, in rules in war. The drummer and the flag holder are not supposed to be killed. Like, it's not honorable to kill them, like for the enemy to kill the flag. To take the flag away from them, yes, and maybe then you kill them. I hope not, but maybe that happens. But as long as they're carrying the flag of that group, okay, that's the group's identity. It's actually making it easier to know who to shoot, or who to club or stick your saber into. It's they're doing a service, because you know which side is which and which group is which. The drummer, same reason. The drummer's not carrying a musket or a sword. They're using sticks to beat on a drum. So I mean, it's really, that's a pretty brave job, right? To go into battle with a flag and a drum, or many drums, and then you have to believe that the other side is not going to kill you because you're unable to defend yourself. But that's the background of flags. That's why I want to mention it. So flags have this militaristic property and territorial identity. They don't identify the individual as carrying it. They identify an abstract idea, which is a fenced-off territory, or walled-off territory, like a nation. And even that, I mean, we can talk about that if you have any comments, we can talk about nations. There are different concepts of nations, and I understand that. There's First Nations, in North America, in Turtle Island. There are First Nations. Do they have specific territories? Some of them do. I mean, they do have relatively specific areas in which they're happy hunting grounds, but not in the sense of Western delineation. I mean, they were, to that lake and over there to that big, mountain, and then over there. But this is our area. This is the area that we operate in. But they didn't have fences or checkposts, right? They were territories, yes, but they didn't. If you came into their territory, well, they wanted to drive you out again, but maybe they'd kill you. But it wasn't the same as crossing a line. That's a very Western concept. That this is my land and that's not my land, but that's your land, but you don't pass over that line to my land, that red line, and which of course we're seeing in Ukraine and Russia right now. And I would also hazard at great peril to myself to suggest that these lines they're also not real, right? I mean, where was the Russian line in 1908? Where was Russia? Where was the line? Well, I'll tell you where the line was. It was on the other side of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. You say, what? What's the Austro-Hungarian Empire? What? I never heard of that. Look in the history book, right? Look in the history book. There was an Austro-Hungarian Empire, which was basically the line butting up against Russia. Russia included Finland. Russia included Ukraine. Russia included all the Baltic states. Russia was all the way to Poland. And even, I don't know when Poland existed, but it's in the first part of the 18th century. These have not always been there, these lines on the ground. In fact, the lines on the ground don't exist. They're just lines on a map. Occasional checkposts, fence here and there where it's easy to cross. But no, these have not even existed some of them not even existed for 100 years. Some of these states that we're talking about now in the news. Whereas if you watch a few weeks ago, I was in a cemetery, it's called a necropolis, and I visited this grave, or I paid my respects to a grave by speaking about it and so on. That was from, well, two graves actually. One was from Poland, and the person who had obviously died, who was from Poland, the inscription pointed out that he had died fighting for Poland. Now, who was he fighting against? Actually, I don't know. It may have been Russia. I don't know. Or it may have been Germany. I don't know. But anyway, that was someone fighting for the security of their country, as defined at the time that they were alive. And then another grave I saw was a 5th Highlander who died in, wait for it, Gaza. In what year? Like last year, or 20 years ago, or no, in 1917 in Palestine. So, here's a Scottish Highlander dying in Gaza, Palestine, in 1917. Israel didn't even exist. And who's in the news today? Well, you don't hear a lot much about Palestine except when it's being bombed or more walls are being put up against it. But who do you hear about all the time? Israel. Didn't even exist then. So that fighting on lines and territories and so on has been going on for millennia. As soon as the nation state idea becomes a government tool to control the people inside that determined area, and then those nation states, well, there's lots of examples through history, they collude. They cooperate, not necessarily across the border, but they cooperate at various levels. I have to bring this back online. They cooperate at various levels. Well, here we go. Oh, I guess it's finished. No, that's the old one. Sorry, folks. I'm so terribly bad at I didn't change the name. One of the things is, I'm so poor at operating these things. I have Freedom Wednesday, March 2nd, and it's not, it's the 8th. All right, so let me change that to 8th, just to be. So you can see that we also refer to this as Freedom Wednesday now, right? Because, well, freedom's being lost around the world. And it's kind of creeping along. It's the fascist technique. It's like just step by step. It's goose stepping along with Nazi Germany. It's just incredible. Really, stand back and look at it. My gosh, don't believe me. Look at it through your own eyes. The freedoms on these countries that you'd never ever imagine to be amongst the first of the Western democracies to go fascist. They're speaking it publicly. It's unbelievable. And the police, how they're acting, man, oh man, someone has to give the police in your own country a little video montage of what happened with the Gestapo in 1930s Germany. Please, somebody, show these bloody idiots what they're doing. I just saw a video from Canada. And the police coming out, it's nighttime, a couple of people on the street in Ottawa, the nation's capital. I can see fences in the background. So a lot of the city is like fenced off, right? Protecting against who? Terrorists? Like who's being inconvenienced here? The government? The police? No. They're making work for themselves. They're fencing off things so that citizens can't move around freely. It's called freedom. It's called access to businesses. Those businesses are starving. Why? Because of the protesters? Well, the protesters, I think, are mostly gone now. And the trucks are gone. But the police are acting like what were called brown shirts. The police are acting like, and in fact, I heard the policeman in the video say, "Oh, the Prime Minister said." What? If he said the Parliament said, or our government, by consensus and democratic process has said, blah blah blah, I wouldn't have a problem with that, because that's who we elect, right? But saying for a policeman, and it was a man, for a policeman to say the Prime Minister said there's an emergency mandate, or whatever it's called, emergency lockdown. And in fact, there isn't one. I believe it was lifted like the day of it going through Parliament, because yes, it passed, but then it was rescinded because it's completely illegal and it's against the Charter. Now, everybody people, I'm not trying to give you a history on Canada's charter rights, but we do have this charter from 1983 called, or is it in 81? Anyway, I always make that mistake. 81 or 83, look it up. And that is the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And it does have what's called a notwithstanding clause. Notwithstanding, meaning that actually the government can override the rights of citizens. However, it can't do that with no reason. It has to have a reason, and it has to be a stated, and I think argued in Parliament, reason to invoke what used to be called a War Measures Act and now is called something else, Emergency Measures Act or something like that. And okay, well, what's the emergency? Where's the invading party? And I would say to you, it's my opinion. I'm starting to sound like, well, not as good as, but Russell Brand. He's always saying, "That's just my opinion. What do you think?" Right? And that is also my approach to this. This is just what I think, and I'm interested in what you think. And if you think anything similar, please say something, because that's part of conscience land. That's part of being a citizen of conscience land, is look up, stand up, and speak up. Speak up here. Have some courage. Have some balls. Not ladies, but actually, my reality is, and this is Women's Day, so, there's a whole lot of women with a whole lot more, what do they call it, kahunas, than many men. I would even venture to say most men today in this world. I've been very disappointed. Oh, so disappointed. So very disappointed with friends of mine. I still call them friends because they are friends. And I believe they care for me and I care for them. But their level of courage is zero. Their level of, they are the people who in the Second World War were the collaborators. They are the ones that are so freaking scared of their jobs, of their position, of their money, of their status, and actually how they look to other people. Like the other male friends saying, "Yeah, let's kill, let's beat up those bad guys, the bad guys." And the bad guys in this case are Canadians who are activists, who are truckers or activists or people on the street. And they're not all men. A lot of them are women. And what I'm saying is it's a nation of cowards. It's a nation of, well, with the exception of those who you have seen clearly are not cowards. They drove their trucks and parked them non-violently with complete bravery, like complete, what's the word? It's like they're not scared. And they've been threatened. They're threatened, the police threatened them, definitely threatened them with tickets and threatened them with jail, threatened them with this, threatened them with that, threatened them with everything, and they stood their ground. They just sat there. Well, actually, they didn't just sit there. They sat there. Some of them honked their horn. Some of them spoke. They talked to the media and so on. They did what they came to do. This is courage. This is bravery. This is what you want to see. Not just in men. You want to see this in women too. And what I was beginning to say is that's exactly what you're seeing. You're seeing women take the place of men. At least in Canada. There's more courageous women in Canada, more righteous women. And righteous I don't mean in the sort of the religious sense. I mean really doing what's right for their children. I think it's sort of the mama bear, even young women with no children. It's still the mama bear, ethic Like, you are not going to tell me how my children are going to be protected. I'm going to protect my children. You're not going to tell me that, oh, give them over to me and I'll protect them and I'll put you in jail. No, that's not going to happen. This is the mama bear ethic. And I'm so proud. I'm so, I, I literally get choked up talking about it because it's a beautiful thing. And it's a courageous thing. It's a very, very courageous thing. And I don't see the men, with the exception of those men who obviously did stand up. They're the ones also that must be, held as heroes. They are also. But certainly not the men who, in uniform or not in uniform, or in bureaucracy, or in government itself, or leadership. The guy ran away, hid away when the Pruckers came in. This is the absolute antithesis. This is the absolute opposite of courage. Absolute opposite. The absolute opposite of bravery, courage, heart, soul, spirit, care, empathy, compassion, understanding. Oh, I could go on. Obviously I am. Right? It's just awful. Oh man. So what I'm online here, and nobody seems to be seeing this, so that's okay, but it'd be nice if there were some messages. I was going to do this on Zoom so I could get feedback, but the Zoom doesn't seem to be working. But I'm in a bit of a quandary now, and I just don't know where to go, because I'm very, very frustrated and very anxious about not using whatever potential I have, whatever skill, whatever I can bring to the situation to make it better. I just don't know where to go. I don't know who welcomes some old old activist like me to support you. My life is irrelevant. My life, like getting killed or shot or trampled by horses or whatever, hey, I got to go somehow, right? But I am not going to go whimpering. I'm not going to go, oh, well, I'm safe. I got my little, I don't know, bowl of cereal, and I'm fine. No, I don't care. I'm not, my life is over as far as I'm concerned, because I see young people, I speak to young people and I see in their eyes and in their voice that they're kind of giving up, or they're thinking, well, future's crap, and I'm just sort of living for the day and not really very excited about anything. And this absolutely crushes me. I can't stand it. I can't stand that attitude. I never was subjected to that. Excuse me, I'm choking up. I was never forced into thinking this way. I had no reason not to believe the future would be just great, if only I would, do the right thing. Right? This is what, oh, here's Aruba. Aruba is watching. Hello, Aruba. So I never thought that in my life. Right? The world was my oyster, literally, and I'm very lucky. I I did the Forrest Gump thing. In fact, I was watching some movies the other day, and it's horrible. It's not horrible, but no wonder it's very, very difficult for people to have a conversation with me, because I watch a movie, and I in my mind I'm going, oh my God, I've been there, or I did that, or I've seen that, or I climbed down into that chamber in the pyramids. And this is not a boast. What I'm saying, the reason I'm putting this forward is because that's the attitude I have had all my life, and I moved around and did it. What I see happening now, today, 2022, is young people, particularly, are being restricted from even moving around, even in their own communities, to meet people, to expand their experience. I don't mean you don't have to travel to a foreign country or see some wonder of the world. You don't have to do it. You can do it right in your own community. You can do it in walking distance. But when I see these videos, like I said, in Canada, of these people being stopped by the police for walking in a restricted area. What the hell are they talking about? Restricted area? They're on the street. And there's nobody around. It looked like it was about 11 o'clock at night or something. What is this fascist state that is emerging here? Your papers, please. Who are you? Where are you going? What the hell? What are you asking me where I'm going? I'm walking along the street. I don't have to tell you. I'm not doing anything wrong. And I don't have to tell you what I'm doing. I might be just thinking, I don't have to tell you what I'm doing. So, we're really, and this is Canada I'm speaking about. Now, there's young people all over the world who are also subject to this. And it's not just the police or the authorities or the government or vaccine mandates or whatever. That's the COVID thing is over, right? Not the disease is over. The scam is over. It's finished. Don't believe me. Look around. Look around. The governments are changing their story as we speak. Oh, well, this new, but there's a war going on. Oh, look over at the war, which is very important to look at, of course. But then we look at the war and we see, oh, no brown people, no brown people, no black people. Only white people are saved in Ukraine. All the neighboring states, white people, are, open arm welcome. What happened to the Palestinians, the Syrians, the Yemeni, Sudanese? What about these people? They live in countries too. They're under attack too. They're in war too. I think Yemen is 6 years now. Saudi Arabia going and bombing the crap out of them, backed by the US and Israel and everybody else. It just burns me up. So what I'm trying to do is be positive, right? Because this is Change Wednesday. It is Freedom Wednesday, right? It's now called Freedom Wednesday. Why? We got to bring this to the fore. I mean, climate change and all the rest of it, it is happening. It's very serious. But who's paying attention to it? Who's paying attention to it? The governments aren't paying attention to it. People aren't paying attention to it. What people are paying attention to, but not enough, is their freedom. They're saying, oh my God, look at those people over there. They're being, invaded. Their homes are being bombed. Their lives are being disrupted. Wow, they're not free to just enjoy the day. Oh, gee, they're not free. Oh, I'm free. Oh, I'm free. I'm free. I'm in America or in Canada or some place like that, or, whatever. Are we free? And the answer is no. No, none of us are free anymore. The COVID thing did exactly what it was planned to do. I mean, read the books. Klaus Schwab wrote a book, COVID-19, the pandemic, Great Reset. He wrote a book about it, So supposedly it came out like, I think 2 or 3 months after the pandemic hit. Oh boy, this guy's smart. He can write in 2 months an entire program, a plan of how these things are interrelated and so on in 2 months, when the rest of us were scrambling around to find face masks and figure out if this is real or not. But no, he is brilliant, saw the situation, boom, in 2 months or 3 months, or even if it's 4 months, doesn't matter. COVID-19, the Great Reset. Man, oh man, I'm not that naive, I'm stupid, but I'm really not that dumb. What do they take us for? Absolute idiots? Absolutely childish dum-dums? Come on. So it's this thing. It's not that it wasn't a real virus. Not that there wasn't people dying, less than 1%, but that's enough. And anyway, most of them were quite old, much older. So, very sad that anybody died. I had friends that died, supposedly, of COVID. Um, but okay, so people die. We all do. I do. I will soon. Maybe sooner than I want, depending on how the governments. Um, well, if any of the governments are listening to this, you've seen. Look, governments. Hey, hi, hello, governments. Hello, CIA, NSA, NBQ. All the three-letter things and so on. Uh, I've been protesting, well, more than 20 years. Okay, you guys beat me up and put me in hospital in Canada in 2003. Okay, I'll never forget that. I'll never ever forgive you, and I will never forget that, ever, 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 ever. It has influenced my life, my whole thinking, my whole perspective ever since then. But thank you, really, seriously, thank you for waking me up. Because I was Canadian. I live in a dreamland. I thought, oh, the government's on my side. If I have trouble, I look to the police. They're there to help me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All the crap that we were taught in school, which, I say crap, and that's not fair. It wasn't. It was true at one point. When I was growing up, it was true, largely. Now the scam was still there. The big picture, the big forces of the great game of the nations was still happening, of course. But they weren't treating people, at least in places like Canada and the United States and Australia and so on. They weren't treating them, and Europe and the UK. They weren't treating them roughly, right? We were probably programmed. For sure, we were programmed, but we were sort of gently programmed, right? And nothing that would incur any real fear, at least not in me. And unfortunately for the system, it didn't make me fear in my life. And that's why I travel. I was able to travel so much. I've become a traveler. I'm homeless now. I don't have a home. All I do is travel. And I try to, stay alive through various means, but they're not very good. So, I'm not living the high life. I've got the same clothes on I had the last, many months. But I don't fear. I don't fear death. I don't fear other people. I don't fear armies. I don't fear governments. I know who they are, and they're just weak little, scared little kids like me. I mean, I'm not a scared little kid, but they're just frightened individuals hiding behind uniforms and titles. That's it. They're human beings like everybody else. They're not that smart. They're not that much smarter than me. Somewhat, but not that much, right? And anyway, it doesn't matter how smart you are or not. It's what you do. So 20 years ago, they made a mistake. They beat up the wrong guy. And definitely they did beat up the wrong guy, because I was teaching photography at that time at a college, and it was my students that took the pictures of me being beaten. Right? I can still feel it, man. It's just even 20 years later, I get the pains in my body when I think about it. So they made a big freaking mistake. They made a big mistake, and they made this mistake with many, many people around the world, many people like me. They turned us into activists against them, right? Because we saw their evil side. We saw that they are brutal and uncaring and non-discriminatory in their violence. Anybody who opposes, they see as the enemy. They don't see us as a democratic check and balance. They don't see us as, okay, well, let's sit down and negotiate this. Let's talk this through. Let's see, maybe we made some mistakes in our policy or in the way we are policing. Maybe we've made some mistakes. No, they never make any mistakes. It's only us that trespass on their property, or it's not even their property, it's the property of their bosses. And then they come down hard with batons, or sometimes shooting. Depends on your skin color. If it's a white person, it's a baton. If it's a black person, it's a shoot. It's a gun. It's a bullet, which is can be deadly, can be more kill you. So so they made a big mistake. And do I say I'm not an activist? Like, do I go around saying, well, I'm not? Hey, you can see pictures. I've posted them for years in London, blocking the bridges, you know, blocking Parliament, blocking Marble Arch, what is it, Oxford Circus. I'm not cowering in the sidelines. I'm with those braver people, much braver people, right? I'm with them, right? I'm supporting them. I'm adding Sustaina Claus or whatever the character I happen to be at that time to the support of what they're standing up to and speaking out about, right? They're looking up, they're standing up, and they're speaking up. I mean, there's nobody. Well, maybe Aruba's watching. That's great. Thank you, Aruba, for watching. There don't seem to be many people online, but I will. Maybe if anybody watches this in the future, you can have a look, or you can hear what I'm going to say next, and that is, I talked to you a little bit about this political party, but it's not a political party. It's just a way to transition from this politicization and this borderful world, the world of borders, to a borderless world. Not to say that all governments will just expire. They won't, but they'll morph. They'll transmute into something else. And my belief is that it'll be much more decentralized, community-based governance. In other words, it won't be central control. It will be universal collaboration, right? It's only one planet that we live on, and communities have their own strengths and weaknesses, and the communities will naturally, as people also do, they will cooperate with each other or not. Maybe sometimes they don't want to cooperate because of skin color or religion or I don't know, worldview, or the kind of car they drive. I don't, whatever it is, they will. But the good ones will collaborate with more communities, right? But they're not controlled by a central government. They control their own affairs. Why? Because it's local. The mountains are high and the emperor's far away. So they will control their own lives. Will they have laws? I guess so, probably, because there's always these little punks that mess things up, right? But not to suppress people, to keep people healthy. In a lot of Aboriginal cultures, there are very, very, very different ways of punishment. Some of them involve shame, some of them involve things, but most of them involve kind of, well, look, you made a mistake, so come over here, we'll give you a big hug, and let's see if we can figure this out so that you don't feel not loved, you don't feel rejected, you don't feel isolated. We don't put you in jail, we don't put you in isolation. We bring you into the community even tighter, right? Not to smother you, but to show you that we don't want you to be a problem. We want you to get along. We want you to have fun. We want you to be smiling, and so on. So there are systems that we've been using in civilization for thousands of years. And then these guys like, the British and the Americans, and Canadians do it too, but basically the British and the Americans come up with this jails, concentration camps, and that's from the Boer War. In case you didn't know, it didn't start in Germany. It started by the British in South Africa. Concentration camps. What? To concentrate people into a certain area so that you can control them. Right? They didn't want to put them in jails because it's too expensive to keep them in jails. They got to build a building. Just put them in a concentration camp. Cheap buildings, but put a big fence around the whole thing and get them to hate each other and keep an eye on each other. You don't need that many guards. All these ideas come from, well, my culture, right? But there are other ways that other cultures have to deal with it. I guess I'm getting off track, but why not? I'm live here. I remember one of my first trips to Nepal. It may have been the first trip many, many years ago. And I remember seeing, and it was still in effect then, people in stocks. You know what stocks are? Is like a piece of two pieces of wood with a big hole and then two smaller holes. I mean, two pieces of wood on top of each other, and between the two pieces of wood there's a big hole and there's two smaller holes. But actually, when you lift the piece of wood on the hinge, right, the two pieces of wood come apart, and those holes are where somebody puts their neck and their hands, and then the thing is brought down. Now, it's not a guillotine. It doesn't cut off their head. It just immobilizes them. It keeps them in space. And they're pointed out toward the street. Now, this was up in the mountains, so there's no jails up there, right? So what they do is when someone does something like steals something, or acts badly toward this, scares somebody, or makes someone terribly uncomfortable, and the community says, no, you're not going to get away with this behavior without punishment. Do they hurt them? No, they don't hurt them. You know why? Well, there's many reasons why they don't hurt them, but one of the reasons is they don't want to hurt them. They want them to be healthy, to keep farming, to keep contributing to society. They don't want to hurt you. They don't want to cut your arms off or your legs or break your knees. Then you're an invalid. Then they have to look after you. No, they keep you as healthy as possible, maybe a little hungry, but they keep you in health, and they embarrass the hell out of you, right? Because it's pretty hard for especially younger people, or maybe even worse as older people, but anyway, to be in these what's called stocks, immobilized, your face pointing out toward the street. And of course, you're standing up yourself, right? I mean, your back end is not supported, so you're standing there in effect, but bent over, supported by the stocks. But I can't imagine how you sleep or anything like that. It must be very painful, difficult. But mostly it's that people are walking by your face. And the people who know what you did and say, hey, I really hate what you did, maybe they throw a tomato in your face, then you can't do anything about it. You just have to take that abuse, if people are going to be that, which I sort of doubt that much happens, especially in the mountains. I don't think people abuse the person in stocks, but the person in stocks doesn't like to be there. And the people know why they're there. And I think I don't know what what is it called, recidivance or something, the reenactment of the crimes. I imagine that it's relatively low, unless they have mental illness problems, because once you're embarrassed like that, but you're taken back into your family, you're taken back into the community, and the community says, did you learn your lesson? Like, don't do that again. I think it's just natural that most people would say, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean, I was eating too many fermenting berries, I didn't think. So anyway, that's a little story to say punishment, the way we are doing it, doesn't work. So these cops coming up on the street and telling people to move off or be arrested. I mean, this cop said to this person on the street in Canada, in Ottawa, yeah, you can be arrested. And he also said the law, the Emergency Act law, you can be arrested because this prime minister said the prime minister said you can be arrested. And as I heard that, I thought to myself, my God, that's fascism. That's dictatorial. That's the brown shirts or the Gestapo listening to what the Fuhrer says and saying, the Fuhrer said it, I believe it. You're a criminal. You're in the wrong place. You have to get out of here. You have to go away. Or you come with me and I put you in a jail. Or I put you in stocks. Right? And that's in Canada. And that's in the capital of the democratic country. Wow. You say, oh, well, that's a very small instance. Okay. Maybe it's the only time it ever happened, and it's on camera. Do you believe that? Do you believe that it's the only incidence of that ever happening, and it happens to be on camera? I don't believe that at all. If it's on camera, it means it must be happening all over. Really. Not everybody's ready with a camera to record these kind of incidents. So there you go. Kind of got off track, and sorry about that. But I was talking about my own activism and the fact that I'm an activist and I'm proud of it, and I want to make myself available to other communities. I have to leave this community pretty soon, visa reasons and so on, which is totally fine. I'm happy to do that, but I want to go to the right place. I'm hesitant to go to my own country, not for any fear, but just for uselessness. Because if they treat me like they're treating other people that I see, I don't want to go back to an authoritarian state where my freedoms are suppressed and I can't do, for instance, the protest or the activism that I know I must do for young people and the world. I know I have to do that. I'm not going to not do it because somebody tells me not to do it. I was working with Extinction Rebellion and other groups, for years. I'm not an Extinction Rebellion, uh, you know, promoter exactly, but I'm a participant. I support them in every way, as long as they're also not, feeding, as long as they're also not some captured entity, as long as they're not being controlled by the state or somehow, infiltrated and wrecked. Now we're all infiltrated. Well, hopefully I'm not, because I'm only one. But hopefully, yes, of course, there's infiltration all over. All these organizations have agents, foreign agents in them, not necessarily from a foreign country, but from a foreign belief system, foreign ideology, foreign, um, you know, people who will dishonestly deceive you into thinking they're believing in what you were putting forward, like like conscience land and the principles of conscience land. They say, oh yeah, 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 oh yeah, do no harm, oh yeah, yeah, have no, do not fear, and oh yeah, leave it better than you found it. Yeah, I agree with that. And then they go and you know rat on you somehow, or they go and hurt you somehow, or they go and instill fear somehow, or they simply leave it worse, damaged, which is simply their existence, simply their infiltration. They leave it damaged, so they leave it worse than they found it. They don't leave it better than they found it. So, does that happen? Not to scare you, but yes, pretty much in everything you're doing. Everything that's happening is infiltrated. Government, fossil fuel industry, pharmacological, what other the hell they call it, pharmacy industry, not pharmacy, what do you call pharmaceutical industry, all of them. They're all, and that's the beauty of conscience land, because you can't infiltrate it, because you can't infiltrate my conscience. I control what's going on in my conscious mind. It's very difficult for me to control what's going on in my subconscious mind, and that's the one they're attacking. And they're attacking all of us in our subconscious mind, in our behaviors, in our habits, and in our environment, the way they set things up with Ukraine, versus Yemen or Palestine, or that's what they do. And that's not a new game. That's been going on a long time too. But that's what they do. And so, yeah, I mean, I even see it on my own feeds, right? Google is just absolutely unremitting, and Facebook as well. They, as soon as you say something of one perspective, you see almost immediately the ads come up that are, or the YouTubes come up, which are, it's all Cambridge Analytica stuff, right? They're just ever so slightly, um, nudging you in the other direction. So they think I'm a liberal. What do you call that? Socialist liberal or something. Like, they think I'm one side, and then what they're trying to do is get me to the other side, because it's very easy to swing people, right? Once you believe one thing and then they say, well, that's all crap, and then you believe the other thing. Right? Well, that's what they're doing to me. And just like beating me and putting me in the hospital, I thank them for their action, because in conscience land, what you'll learn if you learn anything from interacting with people is we have a thing called muscular mind, right? And muscular mind is the only defense. It's not Mind Valley or these things. Those are probably pretty good, but they're mind control things. What muscular mind is really the barrier. They say open your mind, open your mind, open your mind, and that's true. You do need to open your mind. You need to relax and open your perspectives, but you do need a defense, really, because that's the way hypnotism works. What hypnotism does is it takes down all your defenses and reinfects your subconscious with what basically they want you to do or to know or to have knowledge of, and knowledge of how to do. So, what I'm proposing, and we're proposing, I shouldn't say I, what we're proposing in the McMaster Institute is that that's what we're training people to do, is be strong, have a strong mind, have a strong commitment, whatever it is. It could be religious commitment, it can be anything that is you feel passionate strongly about, but it's for good, right? It's not about hurting people, it's about helping people, or it's about disabling the mechanisms that are used against us. That's sort of the 1984 stuff. It's about resisting. And if you haven't read 1984 yet, read the damn book, okay, before before it comes true. Because unless you read that book, I would hazard to say that unless you understand the essence of that book, and you won't see, you may not see how it's coming true now. You may think, oh, well, that's a book, and I mean, I've heard about that book, or I saw a movie or something about that book. But no, you can't say I saw the movie. That's crap. Movies are programming. They take a big body of words and meanings and ideas, and it compresses it into just the main points and puts it in a 90-minute film. And it's also the filmmaker's interpretation of it. Read the damn book. Don't watch the film. Watch the film if you want after you read the book. Might clarify a few things or give you better ideas on what, or you might see how many filmmakers get it wrong. They concentrate on the action scenes and they lose the whole point of the book, right? So be aware of that too. So that's what muscular mind is about. We have to give, especially young people, a new chance, a new life of not mind control, not being, like a leaf in the wind. Oh, the Instagram says this one day, and the TikTok says this the other day, and the Twitter tweets this the other day, and oh, woo, yeah, everything's okay. Well, no, actually, not everything's okay. No, there's some things that are not okay. And, the social media has really made that evident. There's things that I see people doing today that, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, they sort of wouldn't think of doing this, things that way, or at least they would be pretty cognizant, they would be pretty sure that if they did something that way, they're going to be rejected by society. They're going to be rejected because there's just certain ways that we interact as human beings that are time tested over thousands and thousands of years, and they are basic. Things like handshakes, things like eating together, things like how we introduce ourselves and so on. These are very, very important things. And if you don't learn those social skills and understand and practice them, you're going to have real trouble. You're going to have real trouble when you put your phone down, or when the EMP goes off, or the internet is hacked and you don't have any phone anymore, and you're out on your own and you have to deal with human beings, and human beings who are also stressed out because they've also lost their crutches, and you're going to find that a world that is populated by these kind of people without a muscular mind, it's Mad Max. It's bad. It will be bad. It is bad now. It will be worse because they won't have their crutches. And when they won't have their crutches, they won't know how to do many, many things. And when they don't know how to do many, many things, they're going to get frustrated. They're going to get angry. And who are they going to get angry at? Themselves? No, they're going to get angry at the person in front of them, whether they're part of the problem or not. That's they're going to get angry. So domestic abuse and all this stuff is going to go skyrocketing through the roof. And that's what we have to avoid. All right, so I think I'll wrap it up. Let's think. Thank you everybody for watching, if you have been, and I just wanted to let you know as an activist, I'm putting together this. Again, it's not a political party, but it's a citizens' assemblies, collectively decentralized, that approaches this in a very special way. It's about self-interest. It's love and your self-interest, but putting it that your self-interest is best accomplished when you have empathy, when you have the ability to understand how is it other people can give you what you want. How do you trigger that in them? And if you can trigger that in them, then you can get what you want. But in the process, you begin to see that, well, in order for me to get what I want, the other person has to get what they want. Now that might not be something material, or might not, but they need to get something. Even volunteers, they need to get that thank you, that praise, that satisfaction that comes from simply doing what they're doing, but being recognized in some way. And the more eloquently you recognize them, the better chance they will continue. And the better chance they will actually do a marvelous job for society, and they will be copied by others. And that just makes the world a better place, period. So it really does come to these very root things. If you don't get that initial contact, that initial social interaction correct, the whole ball of wax is lost. The whole thing has gone down the tubes. So, as I said, I'm not going to give you the name of it, but the name has a fantastic, cool history. Very, very cool history. And it's something really important from history. And when you learn about it, especially as a young person, you're going to go nuts. You're going to say, holy crap, wow, I wish I were regarded that way. Man, that's heroism. That's cool. And you can do it too. The way I'm proposing it in Conscience Land is that we can use like a turbocharged method of what these young people did in a different way, because there's much less anonymity today than there was then. So, but the bravery is the same. The bravery and the courage is the same. I think hopefully the consequences would not be the same as it was for these young people, but because we do it in numbers, and because we do it democratically, and because we do it still in a free world, then we defeat the fascists. If we wait too long, the fascists have control, and we'll never accomplish this. Never. Well, until the fascists fall, but we can't afford to wait another 20 years, before another sort of Nazi revival peters out. I don't certainly have 20 years, and maybe 20 days or 20 months, but that's not my option. But I'm not thinking about myself. I'm thinking about young people and what their life, their future is about. And the seriously sad thing about it, but again, it's not sad, it's opportunity. It's a really marvelous time to be alive for everybody. We are not suffering that badly right now. I mean, people in Ukraine are, and people in Yemen are, and Palestine are, and yes, they are under siege and under violence and under bombing and threat and death. Yeah, they are right now. Now, what are you doing about making that go away? Well, do what you can, but that's not the only thing you can do. If that doesn't appeal to you, and if you don't have the guts to do that, which I think also takes a lot of courage, there's many, many thousands of other things that you can do simply in your own community. Simply just do things for other people, period. That's it. Get out of your selfish circle, selfish vortex. Get out of it and start doing something that makes other people, yeah. Oh, and I had these are some of the projects of this this love force. That's not the name of it, but that's in sort of a nickname I'm giving it. For nonprofit government, by the way. And this is like my friend Buzz. He's talking about he's going to be prime minister of the country. I hope he will like the concept of this political party. Maybe he'll adopt it. But it's about what he's talking about, which is nonprofit government. If we could possibly get away from a profit government model, right? All the people in government stuffing their pockets with money. That's a big part of the problem, is that people see they see government as a way as an income, government money, like corruption, and get 10% of that bridge being built to get the contract, for that contractor to get the contract. So, that corruption is driven by profitable government contracts that make money for the government, or allow the people in the government to skim off the money, or become middlemen between the parties. So one of the projects, which again, this is one of my very old projects. It's called Canadian Core. Now that doesn't apply to people who are not Canadian, of course, although you could help. But within Canada, we need not a government organized Canadian Core. We need a Canadian organized Canadian Core, not a Canada Core, Canadian Core, which is the people. Okay, the people as a force, a civil defense force, civil defense, our civil rights and defending them. Right, we have a charter and so on. I've mentioned that before. Decentralized, community-based, cooperative organization, but it's not really an organization in the sense. We could call it a DAO. A centralized, community-based cooperative, taking over when government fails. Because we see this around the world, governments failing. Australia, the floods. I read an article about these different Australian defense forces and security something. And the security thing is actually a volunteer force. But, and the government and the Australian Defence Force, is, some people say that it's not trained in this sort of civil relief efforts. I don't think that's quite correct. I think they are trained better than anybody. They're in the military. They're trained to deal with these very, very extreme circumstances of extreme danger. They're trained to do that, but they don't have the mandate to do it, and they're not directed by governments to do it. Why? Because it costs the governments a lot of money, basically, to send out the army to save people. So what the government does, it relies on volunteers, lifestyle of voluntary effort. It relies on the love of the people for their country and their fellow people. It relies on volunteerism to save lives, rescue associations and so on. Now, when you think about that, and then you see how governments treat the people, they ask the people to save themselves. So organize yourself to, get people off mountains and get people out of flooded homes and look after homeless. And, you get all these charities and religious organizations so on to do all this work for free. And then you spend billions on a Trident submarine. You know, it, or I know the military itself, but billions and billions of dollars on weapon systems, which will never be used, hopefully. And anyway, if there are, they're at the end of the civilization. They're there to supposedly protect. So, you know, governments. That's why I say taking over where government fails. Governments are failing, failing, failing. Listen, governments, you're failing. You're failures. You're failing. Not you individually. There's lots of good people in government, but most of the people, and especially these ones that we see are young what are they called? Young leaders, WEF young leaders. These are programmed people. These are infiltrators into governments around the world, into the cabinets, as Klaus Schwab said on so many videos now. You know, he says we've got people in those, you know, in the cabinet of Canada. We've got our people there in there. Is that scary? It's totally scary. Yeah, so for education, training, disaster relief, firefighting, food distribution, you know, food banks. Is it the government doing this? No, it's the citizens doing this. Why? Because they love their neighbor, basically, right? They care for their neighbor. They're doing something because they know that when they need some help, they know that their neighbor is going to be there for them because they help them. You know, reciprocity. You help each other. But we were seeing worldwide. I'm not making this up. It's not my opinion. We're seeing worldwide that the governments are not looking after the people. They're looking after themselves. And they're looking after their police and their military, who are their defenders, to protect the governments, not to protect the people. This is what you're seeing. Yeah, anyway. No, the military too, because again, I'm so Canadian, you know, in my my belief in peace, order, and good government. You know, it's just incredible how I'm duped. You know, I know I'm being tricked, but I'm still tricked. I want to believe that the Canadian military would never turn on Canadians. I want to believe that. I want to believe that. But when I saw, well, of course, we're not talking about the Canadian military. I don't think the Canadian military was in Ottawa during this protest. But they have been other places. I saw them in Montreal. In even you know when I was a little kid, I saw them in Montreal on the streets. They weren't being violent. Okay, so anyway, that's the military. I just crossed my fingers that the men and women of Canadian military would never ever shoot or harm or even push a fellow Canadian. I just got to believe that. Police, clearly, I've been beaten by the police and put in hospital. So, look, you know, what do you want me to feel? What, you want me to feel they're all good people? They're not. And then I see more and more of these videos of them acting absolutely like tyrants. Completely. They don't even know the law themselves. They're absolutely working like tyrants, like little dictators, little despots. These are individual police. And I watched a police person trying to get into a coffee shop that had been open. I mean, they were in the business of being a coffee shop. They had been open and serving the truckers. And then the police began to harass them. The police, imagine, in Canada, the police began to harass them, say, well, you can't be open, and they bang on the door and trying to get and say, we got to come in and inspect. And the person who was not, you know, from his accent, I doubt that they were actually born in Canada, but they're fully Canadian. And they were saying, no, I don't think we'll open the door. We come from countries where, you know, you open the door to the police and that's it. You're dead. We don't believe that'll happen in Canada, but they could do some damage or hurt us somehow. man, to see that kind of feeling, and or you can't see feelings, but if when you see people who maybe are new to the country, but fully Canadian, welcomed Canadian, can't handle it. um, when you see them being treated like that, and that's what they were escaping, I fear for the world. Because here in this country, UK, pretty much the same thing's happening. The government's bringing in laws. I've talked about this many times. In fact, I always forget to bring out the sign that I made. I made this months and months and months ago when I first heard about this law, where that if you make too much noise at a protest, you can be arrested and put in jail for 10 years. What country does that sound like? For making noise, or in their words, being annoying. Annoying to whom? To a police. That's their job. They're supposed to have a certain amount of internal locus of control and self-confidence and hide behind the badge, whatever you want to call it. But, so what, people call you names? So what, people give you the finger? So what? You do your job, which is protect the elite's property, and let us do our job, which is to maintain democracy, maintain a dialogue, maintain the openness of a society. You let us do our job, and you do your job, fine. We're not stopping you. We can't stop you from doing your job. So you shouldn't be stopping us from doing our job, right? And so making noise puts you in jail for 10 years. I don't think I misread that, or I didn't read the law. I only saw, but I met people at COP26 who were absolutely campaigning against this. They said this is the most important thing, ever. But most of the population, they're so, I can't think of a word that isn't nasty. Most of the population is so like the Germans in 1930, 33, 35, just like it. Oh, but the state, we're great people, and those are rabble rousers. They're and like the British, and the Scots, and then the Welsh, and then the Irish, Northern Irish, or whatever. What do you have, a very short memory? And especially Americans. What the hell is wrong with your memory? How did your countries even come into existence? They were all rebels. They were rebelling against somebody else. You wouldn't exist. You wouldn't even be around as a country for sure if there weren't rebels to rebel against, well, whatever, monarchy or invading Huns or, whatever it was. You wouldn't be here. What the hell's wrong with you? There's so many, what? It's okay. It's privilege. It's living in a fantasy world. It's living in a world of TV and apps and I'm saying like TV that you watch. This complete bullshit programming that is driven into your optic nerve and programmed into your brain. And the cars and the fashion and the girls and the this and the that. All the bullshit. It's just such bullshit. It is unless you're incredibly stupid. I mean, really, you can't accept all of this as being something achievable unless you have, well, I guess because you have no experience, you don't have the experience of how extremely difficult it is to have all these material things without credit card, right? I guess that's part of it. Is that it's not that you got these PhDs that are making stupid remarks about the way the world works. Why? Because they're just PhDs. They're not smart people. They're smart academically, and they can write papers and theses and so on. But they're not they're not going to fix your car, and they're not going to get your car out of the snowbank, and they're not going to probably solve one of your emotional or family problems. They're probably not going to be able to do that because they don't. That's not what their narrow-minded expertise is in. And I'm not against people in academia. I used to teach at university. Come on. I quit doing that years ago. I've told that story already. And that's part of the activism. What I was doing was training psychopaths, and I came to realize that by my travels, by seeing what was going on in the world, and then coming back to the university and saying, good God, we are training them to do this. I'm not going to be part of that anymore. So, and that's a long time ago. And I want to say I've seen the world improve greatly since then, but I can't. It hasn't improved greatly since then. It's become worse. Not only has the climate become worse, the ppm, parts per million of carbon dioxide is skyrocketed. The glaciers are melting. Rainforest is reversing its carbon sequestration. It's starting to emit more carbon than it sequesters, and Thwaites Glacier is cracking off. There's a lot of pretty desperate things happening, and it's all because we just kick the can down the road. We don't address face to face the problems. We don't address the issues. We just throw money at it, and also people, but they're not often committed people. They're not the right people. We're not throwing the right people at the problems. Hopefully, you don't throw people, but we're stacking the deck with advisors from BlackRock, right? And the WEF, and we're putting prime ministers into positions who are trained by mind control experts. I mean, they're experts for sure, absolutely, right out of Nazi Germany, absolutely right out of the highest the pinnacle of scientific effort of the 1920s and 30s, is what you're seeing now in the leadership around the world. They are like, what is that, Manchurian candidate? They're like that pawns, or like putting people in positions, and then you click a button or you make a whistle sound or something, and they turn into your robots. And that's what we're seeing right now. And not just in the countries I've mentioned. I think it's pretty global. Some of the fascists are doing it on their own. And I won't mention the countries, but you know which ones they are. And others are, sort of not doing it on their own. They're kind of centrally controlled, but you wouldn't imagine that unless you really knew, unless you saw and really put some effort into, and, also listening to alternative viewpoints of the world. Okay, enough monologue. I don't see any questions, so I'm going to cut it off now. Have a great Freedom Wednesday and Change Wednesday. Smile, change, unplug, be part of the solution. Those things are more relevant than ever. Smile and make other people happy. Why? Because it makes you happy, right? So that's number one. Number two is change. Change something about who? Again, you can't force other people to adopt your ideas. It doesn't matter how many bombs they drop in Ukraine. It doesn't matter. Are the people going to say, "Oh, okay, we'll give up. We're going to just love Russians now because and the same as on the other side. You think Russian people are like really wanting to hurt people in Ukraine? I don't think so. I don't think they want to at all. So what are we beating up on? We're putting sanctions on the Russian people. How's that going to work out? This is just exactly like Nazi Germany, just like the Weimar Republic. In the years before the Nazis came to power, what were the states doing What were the European nations and others doing to Germany? Punishing them, sanctioning them, making them poor. That's what they were doing. How did that turn out? What did you get as a result of punishing people and hurting them and making them poor and making them shaming them, telling them they're bad people? What did you get? Nazi Germany. How does a little scumbag like Hitler get any traction? Charming as he may have been. How does a little creep like that get going? The same way the creeps that are in the governments of our world get going. They're putting the people under economic hardship. They know they don't get love, like this Freeland woman in Canada. She's look into her background, just out of interest. If you're all at all interested, I won't say what it is. You probably guess. I won't say what it is, and don't believe me on anything. Do not believe anything that I say as accurate or true, because I mess up on things occasionally. Look up on her background. Look up her family background. Look at what her family was doing in Poland, in Ukraine, in Nazi regime. Look at what her family was doing. Look at what Klaus Schwab was doing. Look what companies his father was associated with. These lines of people, they're all spread out over the world now in supposedly democratic governments. And they're imposing martial law, emergency war measures acts on the people for no reason. And then they're giving up. Oh, look at Boris Johnson. One day, masks. Next day, no masks, holiday. Next day, masks. This is called mass formation. It is a way, it's psychology, it's psychological manipulation, mass hypnosis. It's a method. Look it up. I'm not making it up. I'm subject to it too, but for some reason, or I think I already went over the reason, it's this muscular mind stuff. For some reason, I'm not as susceptible to it. I'm still tricked by it. I'm still sucked into it, but not as much as many of my friends, for example. My friends' responses, or the people I used to consider friends anyway, they probably don't. They probably think I'm some kind of weird radical person. But if you look at my track record, I haven't really changed anything that I do. It appears to you that I'm not criticizing some groups as much as I used to, because now I'm realizing that some of, not all, but some of what they were saying was true. So I can't be so vehemently, trying to expose them, because they were telling the truth. And then some of the people who I used to support and believe in, it's pretty evident now. It's totally evident now that they were lying. So do I change my ethic? No, my ethic is don't lie. That's the ethic, is teach the truth. I used to have a sign that said that, teach the truth. And what are these people doing? Well, they're deceiving us, and they're using these manipulative techniques, which they didn't invent. They are also just pawns in the system. They are only doing what they were inculcated to do. They are also hypnotized. Many people, I would say most people in the sort of millionaire, billionaire, certainly the billionaire and bigger class of people, shouldn't really call them a class because they aren't a class, they are an anomaly, right? If you look, first of all, people call them psychopaths. Now, are they all psychopaths? Well, no, they're not all psychopaths. There's a lot of psychopathy there. Sociopathy, sociopaths. But it's that they believe themselves to be correct. Why? Because everybody in their system has made money from them making money. Okay, so like all the accountants and lawyers and politicians and everybody who made it possible for these people, I won't mention names, but you know who they are, to rise in power. You know, again, just look mostly at the backgrounds of these people who are billionaires and millionaires today. Most of them, not in the millionaire class, but in the billionaire class, most of them already had money. Okay, their families are already privileged. That's the reality. They mostly sort of inherited this opportunity and this privilege to, to do the 10,000 hours of, of expertise required. Classic example is Bill Gates with his, access to absolutely cutting edge technology at the time. But few people except a few university people had access to these computers, and he got access. He had access. Why? Because his parents are, so connected, and they were in that business or something. I can't remember the exact details, but I do remember he was in the facilities that nuclear physicists had not so many chances to enter and play programming, learn programming, get access to the practice of a technology was absolutely at its infancy, right? This is nothing to say he's a bad person. This is just to say, how did he get so accelerated in his income making and his billionaireness because of these circumstances? Now, there's always an outlier of somebody who makes, sort of invents something wonderful and gets everything lined up, and all the lawyers are actually on their side and not trying to steal from them, and and they actually also do very, very well in the long term. But there's so many fewer of those, so many fewer, because even if they do have a good idea, and if they do have a sort of technology or something world changing, usually they get screwed by the politicians, the government, politicians, lawyers, the gatekeepers. They find ways of basically stealing the money as that person goes up, especially if the person is a person of color. Right? So very, 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 very difficult unless you're in the club, unless you're in Davos Club. Which, okay, final thing, because this is getting fun. In honor of Women's Day, because today's Women's Day, a young woman who I met many years ago in Paris. She's American, but I met her in Paris, and she wrote a blog just recently, which again, if you look at our newsletter, you'll probably see. I'll put a link into her thing, but I won't mention her name because I'm not sure. I don't want to. I won't mention her name right now, but she's a young woman from USA, and she wrote a blog about well, she called it EPIC. What is it called? What does it stand for? Oh, geez, it was so good. But whatever, this thing is called EPIC, EPIC, and the idea was basically to get these people, like these billionaires I'm speaking about, and these world leaders and so on, to go and like do ayahuasca in Bolivia or some, go into the Amazon. No, not Bolivia, in Ecuador or something. Go into the Amazon, and these leaders, like, they've got to go through an ayahuasca ceremony. And if you don't want to know what excuse me, ayahuasca is, look it up. It's a plant. It's a vine. It's a hallucinogen, or I don't think they call it that. They call it plant medicine. But it puts you through. Apparently, I haven't experienced it, but it puts you through some kind of it's a process, and I believe it's kind of a process of purging out the kind of all the negative crap that you got going in your body and your soul and your mind and so on, and you see things and you experience Big Mother Ayahuasca talking to you and all of this sort of stuff, and mostly, like in the majority of cases, from what I've read, people come out of it very positive. It's not a pleasant circumstance to go through, but very positive to go through it. I mean, after it, they come out refreshed and fearless of death, of other people, of governments. You know, they come out fearless. So, of course, that's heaven. That sounds like perfect, right, for conscience land, because do no harm, do not fear, and leave it better than you found it. That's what we need our leaders to do. We don't want our fearful leaders. We want fearless leaders, but not fearless to do harm to others. We want them to do no harm and be fearless, right? Fearless for good, right? And leave it better than you found it. Don't go and bomb the crap out of it and leave it. If you're going to do something, make it better. So anyway, she wrote this thing, and it's very good. And I had the addition that, okay, well, it'll be challenging to get them to all go there, right? But what if we encouraged their families, their friends, their servants, their, the people around them that cared for them, to just microdose them, just slip something into their tobacco, slip something into their drink, slip something, not to hurt them, it's not to poison them. Put some hallucinogens, some things, and get them mellowed out. Like get them, or ideally get them to go to this ayahuasca ceremony, or bring a shaman to them, or sit in their living room and set a fire to the floor, or whatever you're going to do. But somehow get these people out of their greedy, self-serving, materialistic, I don't know what else, violent mindset, domination, God complex. I mean, actually, you learn that you are God in it anyway, but not that kind of like punishing type of God. Yeah, imagine if we could somehow, through the people they love and through the people they care for them, get them through this therapy that is being mentioned by my friend from the U.S. Get them through this psychotherapy, pharmacological therapy, whatever it would be called, and because we're not going to change the world by allowing them to continue to maintain their attitudes. If their attitudes are go in and bomb the crap out of people, or on the other side is don't help Yemenis and Palestinians and Syrians and Sudanese, don't help them, but only help white people. I mean, well, all of those groups, they need some help up here. Okay, they're not kind, for sure. I would say they're not even sane, because if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem, big time. Especially today, if you're not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. So on that happy note, on Women's Day, let's say goodbye to everybody. From Roger the Reality Rooster, buck, 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 wake up. That's the male component. And LCP, Wednesday, the low carbon panda. She's the female component who is saying, live a lifestyle of health, happiness, and sustainability. Build a world in which a lifestyle of health, happiness, and sustainability is possible. And I think we can make the world a better place. All of us, and all the sustainees. If you haven't seen these for a while, I've had them in the bag, but here's Drone, the decentralized dragonfly, bzzz, right? And here's the bee, what was the bee's name? Bee's knees. What is the bee's name? The bee's name is Polly. Yes, Polly, the pollinating bee, right? So there's Polly. And so Polly, we don't concentrate on Polly's honey, right? Honey's for bees. We concentrate on the fact that she is pollinating flowers. These apples and so on. You won't get these without these, right? You can't eat apples without having pollination. So there's Polly, the pollinating B. Here's Mini. This is actually Commander Panda. Commander Panda is the Bethune look-alike. Bethune didn't look like a panda, but that's that. And then finally, we don't have names for these, but you could always send us a name, and that is the three penguins, right? Society, environment, economy, imbalance. With that, on that happy note, thank you everybody. Have a happy Wednesday, happy Change Wednesday, Freedom Wednesday, right? Because freedom is the most important word that we need to be bring into the conversation. Make sure you're maintaining your freedom. Whatever oppressive regime you're under right now, you can retain or you can regenerate that freedom. It can be done, and we must do it. If we don't do it, we fall into fascist thinking, we fall into fascist obedience, and once we fall into that obedient, blinded, looking only one way, that's when the hate is amplified. And then your leaders will say, well, those guys are creating the problem. Those guys over there, so kill them. Or we'll kill them on your behalf, and your life will be better as a result. Well, I'm sorry, my friends. If you believe that, then you're of no help to society. You are no good. There's no good in you. Because you have to realize that everybody has a right to be on this planet. Everyone. They all have a right to be here. There's no one better than the other. Some are more educated than others. Some are funnier than others. We want to keep those funny people around for sure. But we can't go around discriminating because of language, religion, skin color, socioeconomic status, where you live, what you're doing. We just can't. We got to stop doing that. And we can make a better world for sure. Conscience Land and the Conscience Verse is a better world, right? Conscience Land is a no-border land. It's in the mind, of course. And the Conscience Verse, it's like the metaverse or the universe, but it's the conscience verse. It's where we make decisions about big things from our conscience. So thanks, everybody. Peace +1. Join the fun.